dance for joy or lust or anger, and every time you...
Welcome to Sensible Secondhand Classics, the series where we look at practical and sensible cars that have a nostalgic flavour that you can buy for a budget of between £1,000 and £5,000. This is a 1988 Ford Escort Mark IV 1.3L. I remember driving a 1.3L Mark III Escort in about 2020. But is it any good? Should you care? Let's find out, shall we? So the Mark IV Escort was a very heavy facelift essentially of the Mark III. Mark IV came out around 1986. In fact, the project name was called Erica 86 as opposed to Erica, which was the original name for the Mark III. And a lot of this car is very different. In terms of the interior, it feels very different. For some reason, the steering feels lighter in this than in the Mark III that I drove. I don't know if that's just my imagination or if that's the truth. This car is very, very, very low mileage. It's under 12,000 miles, and I've been kindly offered the chance to drive this at the Great British Car Journey, which is in Derbyshire. If you want to, you can come and drive this very car on the drivedadscar.com experience. So if my video is absolutely terrible, they have their own recording equipment, and so you can come and make your own better one. But anyway, the Mark IV was a very, very popular car in this country, and in this kind of fleet spec, this 1.3L, there just would have been tons and tons and tons of these around for a very, very long time. I myself would prefer the 1.6 gear, but that's just me. Base engine that these came with was a 1.1 version of the engine fitted to this car with 50 horsepower. Those were found on things like the the popular trim level. I'm not even sure you got a rear wiper in the popular, to be honest. Then this 1.3, so 1.1 with 50 horsepower. This either has about 60 or 69. I've seen different figures for this for some reason. Though in 1989 it was changed to 63 horsepower for the 1.3. Then you could get the 1.4. That was a version of previous 1.3L CVH engine. This time developing about 75 horsepower. Then the 1.6, another CVH engine, with sort of less powerful cars. It developed 90 horsepower. In the XR3i, which was fuel injected, it was 105 horsepower. And then if you wanted to go really crazy, you could go for the RS Turbo, which had 130 horsepower. There are also some diesels available, but as usual, due to controversial government legislation and all kinds of other reasons, we don't talk about diesels on this channel. So we're going to go round the cones here as we always do, and we'll see how this car handles this little slalom. Actually, considering we've got no power steering in this car, it's not too bad at all. You don't really need it. You really don't, unless you're not practicing your push-pull technique properly. So much better than the Sierra that they've got here that I drove in 2021, which was an absolute handful of those. The Mark I Astra they've got here as well, I can't remember if you can still drive that or not, but that was also light and easy, even lighter than this actually. The suspension changes made to the Mark IV over the Mark III, and in fact the Mark III had changes to the suspension part of the way through its life anyway. Seemed to have improved the ride and handling a little bit. I found the Mark III that I drove, even though that was one of the cars with revised suspension, just a little bit disappointing really. Mr. Richardson, viewers driving, helped me film the video and also filmed the car that day, just had a lot of nostalgia, and I imagine this would produce a lot of nostalgia in him as well if you were to come and drive this very car. I know he's been here several times, so possibly it's on the cards for him, I don't know. But yeah, I'm just imagining sort of pootling around town in the late 1980s, having just bought this brand new Escort and just getting on with life, really. This is the sort of car that wouldn't have been bought by somebody who's a tall and enthusiast, would have been interested in the XR3Is and the RS turbos, or someone interested in luxury, because we haven't got a lot in this, although we have got a rear wiper. Just someone who just wanted an uncomplicated life, knew that Ford dealerships were everywhere for parts and servicing, knew that it was going to be good on fuel. Just you know, possibly the car that was all things to all men. So many different engines, gearboxes. You could get a CVT auto, that's probably best avoided. You could get a 3-door hatch. You could get this 5-door. You could get the Orion that had a boot, and the 600E Orion is probably my favourite Orion of all. That was a late special edition. And then you could get an estate. I can't remember if the 3-door estates were still made at the time of the Mark IV. You certainly get those on the Mark III. Apologies for the wind noise, viewers, and the sound of traffic in the background. What a remarkably preserved car. It's actually done less than 12,000 miles, which is crazy, and it looks really, really original. Obviously we've got, you know, the wheels on in the best condition, but I think someone just decided to leave this as it is, which I think is really the best decision for cars like this. In contrast with the Mark III, we've got very different rear end in terms of the tail lamps, different bumpers, different wheel trims, all that kind of thing, although preserving basically the same silhouette. Slightly later cars had a different Escort badge on the back. Just got the wheel trims on this because it's just the L model. This is the sort of one you probably would have seen most back in the day, although variants like the Gear and the XR3i are more common now. It will start off looking in the boot, which is quite big. Hopefully someone's left this open for me. Yes, they have. It's good of them. So we've got the car cover in there. One thing I've just noticed, the struts aren't working very well, so we're going to have to prop that up with my shoulder. There we go. Okay, see if we've got a spare in here. Yes, we have, and it looks good. Ooh, I've just let's clip those. There we go. Let's clip those back in. Gosh, I didn't realise it was so easy to take the mounting for the rear lights out if you opened up the carpet. As you can see here, it looks like a kind of aftermarket solution for the rear seat belts. And indeed, if you go back to the days of the Mark III, you didn't get rear seat belts as standard on a 1.3L, even in 1985. I think it was 1987 that you had to have them fitted to all cars, and so Ford pretty rather begrudgingly started to fit rear seat belts as standard to all their Escorts. So if we take a look in the back, again in this sort of non-metallic red and with this sort of cloth trim, it's just so typical of so many of the cars I remember from when I was growing up in the 1980s. They just, most of them were this basic. You know, we've got a very basic looking headliner and, you know, no mat pockets. We have got some ashtrays, but you don't get them on the right hand side, you only get them on the left hand side. I well remember these locks from Ford back in the day. You actually do get some material on the door cards, which isn't a given really these days. Normally it just is plastic on some lower end cars. Windy windows, of course. There's a split folding rear seat, no head restraints or anything. Yeah, we get some rear seat belts, that's good. We do get front head restraints, are actually adjustable in this. Some of the Mark 3L, 1.3, I don't think they are. But it's not really a lot to say other than that tons and tons of nostalgia is just flooding in from where I've been in these cars in the past, in the distant past really. I mean, I would prefer a Gear, but that's just me. A lot of you say that actually this is the one to go for, exposed screw heads and all, because this is what the vast majority of people would have had. The gear and the XR3i and things like that were a bit fancy for people who just needed sort of transport, and this was very much transport for a lot of people. Got front door bins, but again, not much else to say. Internally adjustable mirrors, which wasn't a given at the time on cars, really. Still got the interesting sort of door lock things. This car's got this style of key. That was an earlier style of key, I think, for 86. That's really easy to pick, so they changed them for 87. One thing I'm surprised about is this fader control here. That's typical Ford of the era, and you can sort of move that around to have the direction of the sound in the place that you want. Different dash from the Mark III. More modern, but somehow was a bit less characterful in my opinion. It's not bad, it just feels a bit more bland. The Mark III may be a bit more interesting, I don't know. But typical Ford controls of the era. Also similar to the ones used in the Mark III Granada. And then these little switches here, I'm sure, are very similar to a Sierra. One thing I've noticed is that the controls on the steering column are very different. We have these tiny little indicator and wiper stalks, and rather than the lights being on this side with the wipers, the lights actually are now here, which probably is better, because if you're adjusting the wipers and you accidentally knock the lights off, that could be very dangerous. Hazard light switch, of course, just like most 80s Fords. No rev counter because we've only got an L. Manual choke. Actually, this car's nicely warmed up, so when I put the key in and started it, that worked fine. I imagine this was the standard stereo that you got at the time. We do have FM on here. Ashtray, 12, what we call 12-volt socket, and back in the day was a cigarette lighter, and Dolby noise reduction. Interesting. Got some graphic equalizers here. But yeah, well, one. That's just, I think, the volume control, tiny volume control, and digital display. That's about it, really. Some tape storage solution down there. 5-speed manual. I think the 1.1s, some of them would have come with a 4-speed, actually. What if these secret mission documents will go in there? Just hold it a second, dears. Right. No. No use for spy work, then. I wonder what that mirror's doing in there. Maybe that's fallen off. Yeah, we're going to have to go that on the test drive. Never mind though, because we're only on private land, so that's absolutely fine. Yeah, there's not much else to say really. Seats actually feel reasonably comfortable. It's just the sort of quite coarse fabric. If you got a gear, it probably felt a bit more luxurious. Just this 2-spoke plastic wheel. That might be something up there. Maybe a trip computer in some higher models. Nothing in this. And the bonnet release is just down at the bottom. Right, okay, so look at the bonnet, shall we? So, under the bonnet we have a 1.3 overhead valve Ford Valencia engine. Developing, now this is where I haven't seen a reliable figure on this. It's either 60 horsepower or 69 horsepower. 1989 and 90 models got about 63 horsepower. So I'll leave you to decide which one of those it is. Very, very simple to work on. Look, you can almost, you can see the entire gearbox in here. It looks absolutely tiny. You could get a 1.1 as well, but I don't know if the dimensions were any smaller, but that just looks lost in here. Carb on top of here, no fuel injection, remote brake servo. One of the reasons why people liked these cars back in the day was they were so easy to service and parts were just everywhere. At the time, this was the best-selling car in the country and had been for a number of years. By the time that this was made in 1988. Fuse box is just here. Yeah, it's really easy for sort of home maintenance and things like that. It's hard to think of a time when, like, you know, this kind of car that was front-wheel drive, when it was launched originally as a Mark III in 1980, was seen as, you know, more complicated, but people weren't, you know, so familiar with it back in the day. But I mean, it can't be that difficult to look after one of these with this engine that sort of dates back all the way to 1959, with various modifications along the way. Right, I think it's time to go for another drive, viewers. I think really the biggest problem came along in 1990 when they replaced this, and after the Eclipse Special Edition had happened, which was basically a 1.3 Escort 5-door with some XR3i accessories and some better equipment. A lot of people found the Mark V really disappointing. I've driven a Mark 5B and it was alright. It just didn't seem sort of an awful lot better. But this is good. I like this car a lot more than I thought I would. I thought rather like the Mark III 1.3, I was going to find it really disappointing, but I just haven't. I found this just really charming, and I don't want to buy one, but by all means come to Great British Car Journey and try this one for yourself. So let's look at now at some Mark IV Escort trim levels. See, there was the base model. I think it was also sold as the Popular. I always get confused between the base Escorts and the Popular. Were they the same thing? I don't remember. Then the L like this, the LX, which came along I think in '87 as a model that filled in between the L and then the GL, and the Gear and the XR3i and the RS Turbo. Loads of others though. A bonus 90. A friend of mine had a bonus 90 when I was at university. The Eclipse you've already mentioned. The Sport, the Firefly, the GL Plus, the Laser 2, the Bravo, and the Cosmopolitan. There was a very minor facelift in 1989, which meant that the grille very slightly changed, and the 1.3 got a different brake horsepower output. I think towards the end also there was a 71 brake horsepower output fuel injected version of the 1.4 that I haven't mentioned yet. So viewers, should you consider a Mark IV Escort as a nostalgic classic for your hard-earned budget of between £1,000 and £5,000? Well, it won't be as nice condition as this car. That's pretty much a guarantee. You won't get one like this most of the time. But they are out there. The attrition rate on these is terrible, as you can imagine. A lot of them were stolen in the 1990s and 2000s. The second-hand values are very low. They suffer from rust and oil leaks and that kind of thing. But they're still actually quite charming in a sort of way. I can imagine some people would use this sort of car on an everyday basis if they really wanted a sensible second-hand classic. And yes, I'm very grateful to Great British Car Journey once again for letting me have a go in this. Thank you very much indeed for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe, like this video, and comment below, and we shall see you again for some more the reasonably priced nostalgic motoring.